Hey there, it's Seth, and in this video I am going to go a little deeper into the question of the relationship between your breathing and your posture. Now, I made a previous video about this, so I'm going to try this funny thing where I point like that and it magically appears. If that works, that'll be pretty cool because I'm still figuring out these things. But basically, this is going to just be the same thing but more in depth. What's going to happen in a few moments is I am going to actually give you an excerpt of myself teaching from a recent workshop. That'll be the audio. I'll actually perform the movements so that you can see what I'm doing, just so everything's clear. But you can also just listen and ignore the screen, just follow along the audio. But the basic idea, just so you know what's coming, is that if you are well supported, in other words, if your posture is stable and you're really upright, you're going to be breathing better. And if you're kind of shrunk and if you're kind of slumping, well, you're not going to breathe so well. And that's probably pretty obvious, but what you can learn to do is actually notice the very, very, very tiniest first little... I live on a street like a block from the firehouse. Anyway, back to the point. You can follow just the slightest little degrading in your posture because it will immediately change the quality of your breath. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be working very slowly, and when I say working, most of the work is going to be in your attention. You're trying to catch yourself in the moment that the quality of your breathing changes. All right, I think I've said enough there. We're just going to go straight into it. You're going to need a little space to lie on the floor, but in the beginning you'll be sitting. That could be in a chair, or if you're comfortable sitting on the floor, it could be sitting on the floor. So people are sitting now, but can you just bring your attention to your breathing? Again, find what's comfortable for you right now, just to be upright comfortably. If you can, probably better to sit on a harder surface so you can feel the contact of your sit bones with the support. And now please bring one arm out in front of you, and you're going to bend the elbow, and you can make kind of a soft fist, but the idea is you want to float your hand in the air directly above your elbow. So it's like a 90-degree angle. Just hold it out in front of you, okay? You can make a soft fist, or you can just let your hand be relaxed, whatever works for you. And just breathe. If you get tired, you can lower the arm. But as you breathe, what is the relationship of your hand and your elbow? But would you say that your hand is directly over your elbow? Or would you say it's a little to the inside or a little to the outside? Different people may be feeling different things. But now, try to really kind of line them up so that your forearm is perpendicular to the floor, your hand is right over your elbow. And just breathe there for a moment. Feel what that's like. Maybe bring your arm now, bring it down because you've had it up for a bit. Okay. But now come back into that position and see that your elbow is right under your hand. Become aware of your breath again, and then move your elbow just a hair's breadth to the outside so it's not directly under your hand, and listen to your breathing. What just happened to your breath? And then bring the elbow under and take it out. We're just comparing these two positions, but once you notice any difference, make the movement of the elbow smaller and smaller. So you're really looking for what's the tiniest movement away from having the elbow directly under the hand where I feel something, and listen to your breath. Your breath should tell you when the elbow's under the hand and when it isn't. You can also listen Someone was talking about not being sure about feeling the roof of the mouth, the soft palate. Feel your soft palate on the same side as the arm. Does the soft palate change depending on where the elbow is? And what happens to the ribs under the armpit? When are they more available to expand? And when, because when the elbow isn't directly under, you have to have more muscular engagement to keep the hand up there. Okay, bring your arm down. And just notice there was no special breathing technique there. There was two different kind of, if you like to say, ways of supporting weight. One of which may have felt more efficient and maybe the other like a little more work. And you may have been able to tell the difference through your breathing. But just notice now that you're just resting, having done that and paid attention, do you feel like the breath moves down one side of the throat more simply? Do you feel a different sensation in the soft palate on one side? Do you feel that the chest expands more readily on one side? And now just make the same experiment with your other arm. Please lower the arm every time that you feel like you're just getting tired, because no matter where the arm and the elbow and the hand are, probably the longer you stay there, if you sense that you're fatigued. That will make a difference. So you want to be in a place where you can listen, where you can notice these small differences. Now, what happens to the weight of the arm if you harden the soft palate? And what happens to the weight of the arm if you lift the soft palate and you think of that tiny little place in the back of your mouth can actually help lift the top of your head closer to the ceiling? As if you're lengthening your spine by lifting the soft palate. Okay. So when you've made more or less the same experiment, just pause and see how you're doing. Compare the two sides. And then please come down to rest on the floor on your back. But the proposal that's being made here is that anytime you increase your effort, it will impact your breath. And let's just say, without even discussing what it means to have good posture or bad posture, let's just say good posture is posture where it's easy to breathe. If your posture is not so good, you'll immediately sense it in the breath. What you just did, you might think of it as the posture of your arm. Your fist was kind of like your head on top of your spine. And was it over the base of support of your elbow, or was it not fully over the base of support? Okay, so on your back now, reach one arm directly forward to the ceiling. So this time the elbow's straight. And listen to your breathing, especially in the armpit of the arm that's extended forward. And have it as best you can, perpendicular. But now slowly allow the whole arm to tilt inwards so the hand comes a little over your chest. Just a fraction of an inch is fine, and then bring it back. And pay attention to the musculature of your arm. Listen to the inside of the arm, listen to the outside of the arm. Can you feel that if you brought the hand more over your chest and you left it there, it's similar to the idea of when you were sitting and you had your elbow under the hand. You feel, in a way, the arm has begun to fall, but if you didn't drop the arm, you probably engaged the musculature to keep the hand where it is. Bring the hand back to the vertical and then take it a little to the outside and see, again, where in your arm do you begin to engage to keep the arm from falling all the way to the floor to the outside. And again, you don't have to take it 3 inches to the side. You can just come again to the place that feels like the hand is right over the shoulder blade. And how far do you have to go inside or outside to notice that you have to engage a little more with your arm? And of course, what happens to the breath? Okay, rest your arm on the ground. And again, notice if this little experiment that is mostly about just making this proposal that there might be a relationship between your effort and your breath. But notice if you feel something different in your upper chest, under your collarbone, back to your shoulder blade, on the side where you brought the arm up. And then bring the other arm up, try the same thing. Take your time. So even though you know the procedure, don't rush. And make the movements as minimal as you can, because what might be nice is to be able to not only notice the difference between I breathe better here and not as so easily there, but to notice the very first instant where the quality changes. This is a superpower when you can become more sensitive to a smaller and smaller detail. You can rest the arm on the floor whenever you'd like. But then make a different experiment, just slightly different, where you move the arm a little in the direction of going over your head, or a little in the direction as if you were going to lay your arm back down at your side. Just instead of left and right, in relation to your body, it's a little more going up and going down. Notice how this changes the shape of the ribs. And again, in the different positions, how do you breathe? And then rest your arm. Again, listen to your breathing, including how the air comes in your nose, through the back of your mouth and down your throat. Which side of the chest seems to receive the air more readily. And then you can bring your first arm up and do this second comparison where you take the hand a little in the direction overhead, a little down towards your feet. But pause to breathe in each of those places. You'll notice different directions of the arm turn on the musculature in the arm and different parts of the arm. And you may feel changes in your neck, maybe in the soft palate. Rest your arm again. And just roll your head a little side to side. And then leave your head in the middle. And now with either arm, bring it forward to the ceiling again. And then if you bring the hand a little over your chest again and you keep it there, do you find that the breath is restricted? But is the lesson that I should never have my arm in this position? Or how could you find a fuller breath with your arm not in the vertical, with your arm at this diagonal? So I'm going to again say that you can put your arm down at any time. But as you go on now, the experiment would be to compare your breath with having the arm directly in the vertical to then bringing the arm a little over the chest. And if the arm over the chest, you find that the breath is restricted, what if you stand your foot on the same side of your body? And what if instead of tilting your arm inwards and thinking that it's kind of falling, what if you were reaching for the ceiling at that angle? You just become a little more engaged. And what if you likewise think that the top of your head is reaching away from your feet, so you feel that your spine is engaged, and possibly the standing foot and the hip on that side, maybe you lift the hip a little bit, so you feel that the arm has more support even though it's not in the vertical. And it's not necessary that you necessarily find the same breath, but the issue here is that I think we've more or less determined already, right? It takes more effort to hold the arm in the air if it's not in the vertical. But maybe if you turn the effort up in this case, there is a certain degree of efforts that's needed. And actually, there's a way that bringing in more muscular effort, it might restore the support for the breath. So just see if using these different ideas, you can think of raising the soft palate, or maybe not so much raising in the sense that before we found that we could actually stop the breath from coming through the nose, but just as opposed to if you harden the soft palate, if the soft palate really drops, versus if you allow it to feel like it's expanded. Okay, bring your arm down. And then just the last thing, of course, is to try on the other side. And no matter whether you're working with the breath or you're trying to improve the mobility of your hip joints or any other reason you would come to a movement class, you always want to be aware that your left and your right sides, they're never the same. So it doesn't have to be the same here. But if you want to find a breath with your hand a little more over your chest that feels like the same breath you can find with the arm in the vertical, again, if you stand the foot on that side, if you think of engaging, like what if you were actually pushing a weight towards the ceiling, like you had a weight in your hand that you were lifting? How would that be different than just sort of your arm is up there? You probably engage more because you imagine there's a resistance that you have to push through. You don't want the weight to fall. But just notice, is there a place where engaging more actually helps you restore the breathing? Okay, leave it all alone. Bring your arm down. So you haven't been so much manipulating the breath for the sake of how do we improve the breathing here. You've been just noticing what is the relationship between your breathing and your effort. So your main tool has been your attention. But notice if there is any palpable difference in how you're breathing now. And you can roll to your side and come up into standing. And feel how your arms hang from your back now. How are you breathing and standing? And one last just little
game you could play just to sense this relationship. If you just listen to the different dimensions of your breath, how you can expand forward or backwards, left or right, down into the pelvic floor, up under the collarbones. Whatever you feel right now, what happens to your breathing if you just begin to roll one of your feet inwards? You just collapse the arch on one foot. What happened to your breath? Where specifically in your back did you feel the breath was not as free? And then restore the foot. Roll in your other foot. And how much do you really need to degrade the support underneath before the breath tells you that that's happening?
Okay, well, I hope that was valuable to you, and if it was, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. I have an upcoming class I'd just like to mention. It's called Breathing for Resilience. If it turns out you're seeing this video way after I make it, there'll probably eventually be a recording of that class series that you can check out. But anyway, look at the information below. Breathing for Resilience, movewithseth.com. Just stay in touch, check it out, have fun. See ya.